The story starts under a flyover where a bunch of homeless people and junkies are resting. Suddenly, some people arrive there in a car and begin searching for someone among the homeless guys, but they make the mistake of picking a fight with another random dude, who turns out to be a pro martial artist and beats the crap out of them within seconds. This random homeless guy is actually our protagonist, Ji-woo, a famous and eccentric writer. Apparently, he does method writing like actors do method acting. He was writing about a homeless character lately, so he went under the flyover to get some first-hand experience. After beating the bunch of thugs, Ji-woo returns to his lavish home, which is situated in a posh locality. Because Ji-woo's last novel had global success, he went to the USA for a book signing event. After dealing with that, he sits in a cafe to read a book in peace, when suddenly, his attention is pulled to an antique typewriter. The typewriter draws Ji-woo close, and as he reaches near it, he sees a scene from the early 1900s where he is typing something on the very same typewriter, and a girl tells him about a gun that makes the same sound as the typewriter, so they call it the Chicago typewriter. Just then, the owner of the cafe comes there, snapping Ji-woo out of the vision. He tells him about the typewriter, which was entirely handmade in 1930, and that too in Korean alphabet. Ji-woo is intrigued and offers to buy the antique typewriter, but the owner refuses to sell it. However, at night, the typewriter becomes possessed by something and automatically starts writing that it has to go to Ji-woo. The owner freaks out and immediately calls for an exorcism, but when it doesn't work, he calls for a courier service. On the other hand, our female lead, Jenna, comes into the story now. She is a die-hard fan of Ji-woo's novels, and apart from that, she is the type of overachieving Asian who is the source of jealousy for their cousins. She is skilled in rock climbing, martial arts, and shooting as well. She was about to go to the Olympics, but then, for some reason, she decided to quit shooting. Now she runs a delivery service, and today she has to go to the airport to pick up a parcel. At the airport, she spots Ji-woo, who has returned from the US today. She wants to meet him but can't because of her duty. Luckily, the parcel she has to pick up is addressed to Ji-woo himself. Soon, Jenna comes to his mansion to deliver the parcel, but he tells her to leave at the gate. She is disappointed because she can't see her favorite writer now, but just then, a dog comes there, and the gate automatically opens for him. Jenna follows the dog and enters the mansion, where she finds Ji-woo angry that she entered his mansion despite him clearly telling her not to. He reveals that he has a stalker who has sent many dangerous items to him, so he doesn't allow strangers to enter his house. Just then, the dog from before enters the house, and Ji-woo immediately pulls Jenna inside because he is allergic to animal fur and asks her to chase the dog out. Once inside, they find that the dog is in front of a pen drive designed like a bone, and despite their efforts to shoo it away, the dog eats the pen drive and then runs away. Ji-woo and Jenna chase him and corner him at a dead end. The dog ultimately rushes to Jenna and they take it to a vet, where the dog sends out the memory card from his exit hole. Ji-woo doesn't want to handle it, so he lets Jenna take up the task of sharing the data from the pen drive with his laptop. He even takes her to his home, where Jenna reminds him that they have met before and that she is his first fan. Ji-woo just scoffs because a lot of people have said the same thing to him. With that, Jenna returns to her house. She actually lives with her friend Peony's family, and her friend's shaman mom can feel some strange energy around her today, but Jenna ignores her. On the other hand, Ji-woo is trying to write something when he again sees the vision of 1930. He is about to take a closer look at the girl he saw the last time, when suddenly he gets a call from his manager who tells him that their sponsors want to know the title of his next novel. Ji-woo tells him that the story is called Chicago Typewriter, which will be a romantic thriller. On the other hand, Jenna goes to the vet clinic to check on the abandoned dog. She decides to drop the dog off at Ji-woo's mansion, hoping that there will be some servants there who can take care of it. Meanwhile, Ji-woo goes to the library to learn about the antique gun he's been seeing in his dreams along with the typewriter. Just then, he runs into Hwang, a fellow writer and an old acquaintance. Hwang invites him out to coffee and Ji-woo reluctantly agrees. It turns out that Ji-woo was an orphan and Hwang's family adopted him, but because of some incidents, there is bad blood between them. At night, Jenna visits Ji-woo's house with the dog and he sends her away after insulting her and calling her a cheap stalker. The depressed Jenna walks back home when she suddenly comes across a subway and recalls the time she used to work there. That was where she met Ji-woo for the first time when he was a struggling writer, and she supported him silently from that moment on. Meanwhile, at Ji-woo's house, the electricity suddenly goes out, and his stalker appears with a gun in his hand. He is a mentally ill guy who took to crime after reading Ji-woo's books, and that has ruined his life, so he's here for revenge. Ji-woo and the stalker get into a fight, and a few seconds after that, Jenna appears there with a gun pointed at the stalker. Despite looking calm, she is a nervous mess because the reason she quit shooting was because she saw dreams of killing someone. On seeing her like this, Ji-woo also sees another vision of 1930, and the girl whose face he could not see the last time turns out to be Jenna herself. Meanwhile, Jenna threatens the stalker that she will shoot, but seeing her hands tremble, he tries to beat her in close combat. However, with her martial mastery, she pins him to the ground and then tells Ji-woo to call the police. After the stalker is arrested, Ji-woo stops Jenna and asks how she entered his house again, and for what reason. Jenna says that the dog ran away, so she came here chasing after him and found that the door was already open. She suddenly faints with that, and Ji-woo takes her inside. Meanwhile, a spirit leaves the body of the dog and enters the antique typewriter. A few minutes later, Jenna wakes up, and to her utter delight, she is in Ji-woo's bedroom. Just then, she gets a call from her friend Peony, who is also really excited to hear that Jenna is in Ji-woo's bedroom. After ending the call, Jenna begins exploring the house when suddenly, a door opens by itself and leads her into the room where the antique typewriter is kept. She feels that the typewriter is drawing her in, but just as she is about to touch it, Ji-woo arrives there and drags her out. He scolds her for entering his writing room without permission and doesn't believe that the door to the room opens automatically. Just then, Jenna's stomach makes a sound, and Ji-woo realizes that she is hungry, so he decides to feed her some noodles, and then they start making small talk. Jenna tells him that she saved his life, but Ji-woo is the definition of arrogance, and he says that he didn't need her help because he knows martial arts too. He then asks her if she has learned to shoot, and Jenna replies that she learned it a long time ago, back when she was in high school. Well, Ji-woo can only chuckle because he thought that a long time ago was her past life. Soon, Ji-woo's hand begins aching because he took some damage while fighting the stalker. Jenna volunteers to type for him, and since the work is urgent, Ji-woo allows her to do so. Jenna is delighted to help her favorite author type his first draft, and this leads to quite a lot of banter between them. As Ji-woo narrates the story, Jenna's emotions are swayed by the things that go on in the story, and Ji-woo can only chuckle at her. However, as Jenna gets lost in the typing process, the scene suddenly shifts to 1930 again. The Ji-woo of that time scolds Jenna for not typing fast enough, and she taunts him that his story is not good enough to give her 100%. After the story is finished, Ji-woo begins leaving to deliver it to the editor, but he meets with a minor accident and can't go on. He asks Jenna to do it for him, and after teasing him for a bit, she agrees to do it. However, just as she gets a bit far away from him, she tosses his bag back at him and tells him that his story is not good enough to be printed yet. She takes off with that, and Ji-woo can only scream at her as he watches her go. Ji-woo saw this as a vision, and as he tries to confirm if she felt it too, an earthquake occurs, and they hide under the table. However, the earthquake was just inside Ji-woo's home and not outside it. The lights go out too, but just then, Ji-woo's manager comes there and turns on the lights. Ji-woo tells Jenna that if his manager sees them together, things will be complicated, so he asks her to leave immediately, and obviously she is not happy about it. After that, Ji-woo's manager meets him and begins acting like an emotional fool who is worried about him. Anyway, he comes to business and tells Ji-woo about an upcoming interview to clear up the story with the stalker. However, Ji-woo doesn't want to do the interview as he finds it pointless. Meanwhile, Jenna is trying to escape from the house, and Ji-woo distracts the manager so that he doesn't see her. Ultimately, Jenna falls from the window as she is trying to get out of the house. On the other hand, Ji-woo's adoptive mom is watching the news about the stalker who killed many people after being inspired by Ji-woo's books, and she seems low-key happy about it because she is jealous of him. Meanwhile, Ji-woo's adoptive dad, a famous writer himself, is worried about him, but he has to hide it from his wife, who suspects that Ji-woo is her husband's illegitimate child. On the other hand, Ji-woo is busy writing, but Jenna's image pops up in front of him frequently. Just then, his secretary comes there and tells him about a news leak. Apparently, the stalker has been sending him letters every day for the past 3 years, and he has accused Ji-woo of having stolen his content from his letters. Ji-woo is furious at this and visits the manager, who is already rattled from talking with the press. The manager says that they get numerous useless emails each day, so they just shred them. He begins interrogating the suspects, and Ji-woo decides to leave the building. He doubts that Jenna is the one who leaked this news to the reporters because she overheard his conversation with the stalker yesterday. Meanwhile, Jenna is in the vet clinic, looking for the missing dog, when someone calls her name. It turns out to be Hwang, and Jenna is actually the name of his cat. Jenna introduces herself to him after the confusion, and only after he leaves, she confirms with the doctor there that he was the famous writer Hwang. She goes outside to find Hwang in trouble because some idiot has parked his car and blocked his way. She helps him by announcing on the loudspeaker, and as a thank you, she takes an autograph from Hwang. Just then, she gets a call from Jiwoo, who asks her to meet. Jenna is delighted to meet him, but he actually called her to lash out at her. He accuses her of leaking the fake news to reporters, but Jenna tells him that she did not do it. She's willing to do anything to make him believe her, but he doesn't trust her at all. Jenna snaps and calls him ungrateful because he is doubting her, even after she saved his life. Jiwoo arrogantly tells her that he never needed her help, so Jenna simply slams him to the ground and tells him that she will never help him, even if he begs for it in the future. On the other hand, Jenna's friend Peony is with the chef of the restaurant where she works, and he likes Jenna. He wants to go on a date with her, but Peony is sure that Jenna won't come with him because there is Jiwoo's book signing ceremony on that day. However, Jenna comes there heartbroken and says that she has stopped being Jiwoo's fan now, much to the chef's delight. On the other hand, Jiwoo visits the stalker and learns that it was his sister who revealed the fake news to the media. The stalker says that he knows everything about Jiwoo, from his parents' death to how his relatives abandoned him. Jiwoo leaves from there and immediately reaches Jenna's address to apologize. There, he finds that her friend's mom has her phone because she left it behind. The woman can see the dark and supernatural energy around Jiwoo as well, and she tells him that he is unstable and in a lot of danger right now. He ignores her and goes home. He tries writing but can only think about the stalker. The next morning, news broke that the stalker committed suicide and blamed Jiwoo for everything. The media swarms Jiwoo, and he enters depression because of it. 1 month has passed since then, and Jiwoo has still not recovered from the shock. He has not been able to work properly all this time, so his manager suggests that he hire a ghostwriter. Jiwoo refuses to do so, but the manager hires a ghostwriter on his own anyway. Meanwhile, Jiwoo is asleep, and he sees a dream of the 1930s, and this time, there is a new man called Shin there. Shin is Jiwoo's close friend, and he encourages him to ditch work and live his life to the fullest. When he gets up and resumes writing, he finds that his laptop screen has been cracked, so he decides to use the antique typewriter. But just as he touches it, he sees the continuation of his earlier dream. He, Jenna, and Shin leave the bar laughing and singing. Jiwoo dismisses it as an illusion and returns to his desk. He still can't come up with an idea, so he decides to take a smoke break, but can't find his lighter. Suddenly, he finds a very old matchbox, and he suddenly remembers that the same matchbox was in the bar in his dreams. Jiwoo freaks out and runs from his house, wondering if he is going mad. As he is lost in his thoughts while driving, a deer comes in front of him, and to protect it, he falls into the valley down below. He gets severely injured, but then Jenna comes there out of nowhere. She lifts up a shovel to strike down. Jiwoo thinks she's going to attack him and faints. On the other hand, Shin suddenly enters Jiwoo's house and begins typing something on the typewriter. Back in the valley, Jenna was only digging the ground to open the car door, and she managed to rescue Jiwoo. However, in digging the ground, she accidentally drops her pocket watch. Soon, Jiwoo opens his eyes, and he finds himself bandaged and restrained firmly. He sees Jenna nearby with a giant injection, and he freaks out because she appears like a psychopath. Jenna approaches him and tries to put the syringe in his mouth, but Jiwoo closely shuts it, so she just closes his nose, and when he opens his mouth to breathe, she puts the syringe in. It turns out that it was just liquid food, and there was no spoon here, so she had to improvise. She tells him that because of the heavy rain, the rescue team won't be able to reach here in time, and he is lucky that he survived the accident. She has also dissolved medicine in his food, and after drinking it, Jiwoo quickly falls asleep. On the other hand, his manager is nervously waiting for the script as the deadline draws close, but then he suddenly gets the first chapter via fax. It was actually sent by Shin, who is now relaxing in Jiwoo's home, when he suddenly spots Jenna's visiting card there. On the other hand, Jenna goes to the edge of the mountain and recalls her memories with her dad, who used to go hiking in the mountains a lot. He died while saving someone here, so she was here to pay respects to him. He once gave her the antique watch he found on one of his trips. He believed that the old and broken watch contained many stories in it and asked her to cherish it. However, as Jenna begins searching her pockets for it, she finds that it is missing. Inside the cabin nearby, Jiwoo comes to his senses and finds that he is free. He tries contacting the police, but there is no signal. Jenna comes there just then and he starts confronting her about holding her hostage. Seeing her getting closer to him, Jiwoo moves back and tries to pick something up from the counter to protect himself. He thinks it is a knife and points it at Jenna, but it only turns out to be a spoon. He is furious at her now and asks why she fed him food with a syringe earlier, and she tells him that the spoons were dirty. After a bit of bickering, Jenna grabs her shovel and heads outside, and Jiwoo asks her if she is planning to attack him by surprise later. She deems him the king of Delulu Land and says that she is going to find her dad's memento that she lost because of him. Back in the cabin, Jiwoo looks around and finds his 10-year-old picture from the subway. He suddenly remembers that someone used to give him free coffee there. Inside the cabin nearby, Jiwoo comes to his senses and finds that he is free. He tries contacting the police, but there is no signal. Jenna comes there just then and he starts confronting her about holding her hostage. Seeing her getting closer to him, Jiwoo moves back and tries to pick something up from the counter to protect himself. He thinks it is a knife and points it at Jenna, but it only turns out to be a spoon. He is furious at her now and asks why she fed him food with a syringe earlier, and she tells him that the spoons were dirty. After a bit of bickering, Jenna grabs her shovel and heads outside, and Jiwoo asks her if she is planning to attack him by surprise later. She deems him the king of Delulu land and says that she is going to find her dad's memento that she lost because of him. Back in the cabin, Jiwoo looks around and finds his 10-year-old picture from the subway. He suddenly remembers that someone used to give him free coffee there, stating that they were his first fan, and he suddenly realizes that it was Jenna. On the other hand, Jenna is digging around the site of the accident to look for the watch when she suddenly slips, but Jiwoo arrives there just in time to save her. She suffers from a sprain and he supports her on the way back. He apologizes for his past actions and thanks her for everything, and Jenna is really happy. At night, Jenna finds that he has a high fever, so she leaves the cabin to get some signals and contact a rescue team. 2 days later, Jiwoo opens his eyes in his room and finds the manuscript of Chicago typewriter on his desk. He tries to confront the manager about hiring a ghostwriter, but he tells Jiwoo that he himself sent the manuscript, and the editor also liked it. Jiwoo is really confused now, and after reading the script, he wonders if he really wrote it. He recalls that he took some anxiety medicines and alcohol that day, so it might be possible that he wrote it. Anyway, the first chapter of Chicago typewriter is an instant hit, and Jiwoo gets his fame back. He attends many press conferences and then an ad shoot with Hwang as well. After the ad shoot, he wants to get back home really quickly, but Hwang stops him and says that the first chapter of Chicago typewriter didn't seem to fit his writing style. However, Jiwoo ignores him, tells him that he is a crazy writer, and asks him to be like him too. Hwang then goes to his dad and shows him his manuscript, but he immediately rejects it and says that Jiwoo is much better than him. At night, Jiwoo sits down to write again, but he can't come up with anything. Just then he hears a voice and he follows it outside. The space outside his door is quite foggy, and he sees Shin there. Jiwoo chases after him, but as a horse-driven carriage passes him by, he suddenly finds himself in the 1930s. Just then, Jenna comes there, running from some people, and starts dragging him with her. On the way, she drops his pocket watch, and then quickly picks it up before hiding in a telephone booth. Jiwoo is confused, but then suddenly, Jenna takes off her hat and kisses him. The people pursuing her can't recognize her when she is looking like a girl, so they leave. Jenna thanks Jiwoo, telling him that he helped their country a lot today, and he can't understand anything at all now. She simply returns him his pocket watch, and he notices an injury on her palm. He asks her why the men were pursuing her earlier, and she tells him that it is because she is a rebel against the Japanese occupation of Korea. She tells Jiwoo to stay out of it if he doesn't want to get hurt, and then leaves, telling him not to fall in love with her because of the kiss. Just with that, Jiwoo's dream ends and he finds himself back in his room. The second chapter of Chicago typewriter is on his desk, and his secretary soon comes to collect it. However, now Jiwoo is certain that he was not the one who wrote this chapter. On the other hand, his adoptive mother tips off a reporter and tells him to write a story about Jiwoo hiring a ghostwriter. He gets furious when he receives the news and rushes to the manager, asking if he hired a ghostwriter without informing him. The manager says that he did, but he canceled that deal because Jiwoo started writing. Jiwoo furiously leaves that place, but on the way he finds his car surrounded by fog again. He comes out, finds himself in the place of the accident, and finds the watch Jenna dropped. Just as he picks it up, the broken watch begins moving. After that, he reaches his house and hears the sound of the typewriter keys clicking. He enters the house and catches Shin in action. He asks him who he is, and Shin says that he is a ghostwriter. He keeps on smirking and laughing even as Jiwoo treats him quite harshly. Jiwoo ties him up and asks who the hell called him here, but Shin gives him no proper answers. Just then, the manager arrives there and Jiwoo confronts him. He asks him if he gave the passkey to the house to the ghostwriter, and the manager simply tells him that he did not, because there was no need for it. Jiwoo doesn't believe him and takes him to see Shin, but surprisingly, he has escaped from his restrictions. On the other hand, Jenna goes to look after the animal shelter because the owner, who is her friend, has an important function to attend today. Shin is just outside the shelter too, and he keeps staring at Jenna. She feels the gaze on her, so she decides to see who is there. The only person she finds outside is Hwang, who is here to drop off his cat at the shelter for some days. Jenna takes him in, and they begin bonding over the cat, with Shin still eyeing them. On the other hand, Ji-woo is feeling weird and paranoid, and the voice of the antique clock seems oddly disturbing to him because he can't even sleep because of it. Back in the shelter, Hwang learns that Jenna has studied veterinary medicine, so he asks for her help. He is writing a novel with similar themes and wants Jenna's input on that. However, she claims that she left this field a long time ago. He asks for the reason, and after being pestered for some time, Jenna reveals that as a student, she once had to help euthanize some disease-stricken cows and calves when a pandemic broke out. She could not bear that, so she left the field for good. She leaves the shelter late at night and Shin starts following her. Well, Ji-woo was also waiting for Jenna outside her address, but as soon as he sees Shin, he confronts him. Shin says that he fell in love with Jenna at first sight after seeing her at the airport. On the other hand, Peony's shaman mom feels the presence of a dead spirit outside the house, so she comes out with some beans in her hand to chase the spirit away. Shin feels something odd too, and he quickly runs away. Peony's mom ends up throwing the beans on Ji-woo, but as Jenna spots him, she stops the woman. She and Ji-woo go away, and then Peony is left alone to pick up the beans. Shin comes there to help her pick them up, and she falls in love with him at first sight. Meanwhile, Ji-woo gives the old watch to Jenna, and she thanks him fervently. She begins teasing him, asking if he went to search for the watch just for her, but he tells her that she is wrong. After that, Jenna offers to treat Ji-woo at the subway, where he reveals that he finally remembers her as the crazy fan from 10 years ago. He asks her why she supported him back then, and Jenna says that one day while cleaning the restaurant, she read one of his discarded manuscripts. She was impressed by that and decided to talk with him. They found that there were a lot of things common in their lives, and they were both struggling with things back then. Ji-woo told her that it was his dream to become a writer whose style no one could copy. Back to the present, Jenna asks him if he has achieved his dream, and Ji-woo falls silent because he has not done that yet. They leave the cafe after that, and on the way, they see the ad featuring Ji-woo and Hwang. Jenna remarks that Hwang looks more handsome in person, and Ji-woo is shocked to hear that she has met him. He is insecure, and when Jenna tells him that Hwang is a regular at her friend's animal shelter, he gets jealous. He tells Jenna that she is not a loyal fan of him if she likes other writers too, and they get into a small fight. Just then, some media people come there and start clicking their pictures, and Ji-woo grabs her hand as they run away. Jenna drops the watch on the way and picks it up just like in the dream. They find a safe spot in front of a store where Ji-woo asks Jenna who she is to appear in his dreams, and then leaves. Jenna is confused and worries about his mental health. At night, she looks at the watch that has started working again, and suddenly, she sees a vision of 1930. The next morning, she was still trying to process the vision. She asks Peony's mom about the weird things she used to say in her childhood because she has heard a lot of stories about them. She replies that she doesn't remember it because a lot of time has passed, but she is just trying to avoid the question. After that, Jenna finds that her picture with Ji-woo has gone viral, and many people have started referring to her as Ji-woo's secret girlfriend or ghostwriter. It turns out that the person behind this photo and news was the reporter hired by Ji-woo's adoptive mom, and his adoptive dad overhears her call with the reporter. On the other hand, Ji-woo's manager tells him to focus on writing and leave everything about the news to him. However, Ji-woo is still being held by his writer's block, so he can't come up with anything. He goes to the washroom to freshen up, but when he returns, he finds Shin at work on his typewriter. Ji-woo is furious and tries to catch him, but Shin is still as evasive and jovial as ever. He reveals that he snuck in here last night and wrote the script for him because he was not looking good. Ji-woo threatens to call the police, but Shin tells him that if he does so, the word will get out that he hired a ghostwriter. They begin fighting over the manuscript when suddenly, the doorbell rings. Ji-woo hides Shin in a room and goes to the door to find his adoptive dad there. Ji-woo asks him if he is here to spy on his wife's behalf, and he asks if he still hates her. Ji-woo replies that he does not hate her because she has all the reasons to dislike her husband's illegitimate child. This is why the one he really hates is his adoptive dad, who is also his biological dad. In the other room, Shin finds a book written by Hwang, but the first draft was written by Ji-woo. He realizes that Ji-woo ghostwrote for him, but then he suddenly falls down, and the sound alerts the two men downstairs. Ji-woo's dad goes upstairs and finds Shin hiding under the table. He is disappointed in him now, and he leaves his house. After that, Ji-woo throws Shin on the ground and badly insults him. Shin says that they are both equal because he was also a ghostwriter for Hwang. Ji-woo says that he doesn't mind his content being stolen, but he won't take credit for someone else's work. With that, he burns the manuscript written by Shin. Meanwhile, Ji-woo's dad returns home, and his wife tells him to do a promo shoot with their son Huang to promote his new book. He tells her that if his son needs his help to become successful, then he shouldn't become a writer. Huang was hearing all this, and he is deeply upset by it, so he goes to his room and starts playing with his cat, who reminds him of Jenna. But suddenly, his jealousy and insecurity take over, and he yeets the cat across the room. On the other hand, Jenna is getting hate calls from Jiwoo's fans, but Peony tells her to ignore them. Jenna curses her fate, because everything she tries in life ends up failing, and her friend tells her to return to being a vet. Jenna agrees, and to celebrate this occasion, Peony decides to get some drinks. Outside, she meets Shin, and her heart flutters. However, he is only interested in Jenna, so Peony's heart sinks, and she returns to the room. In the room, Jenna is in a trance because of the watch, and she sees a scene where Shin is teaching her how to shoot. Just then, Peony comes there and tells her that someone is waiting for her at the gate, and then plops onto the bed, quite upset. Jenna finds no one outside, and she follows the sound of a whistle. Suddenly, the story switches back to 1930, where Jenna enters a bar and delivers some top-secret information to Shin before going to the basement. Some people pursuing her enter the bar, begin searching for her, and eventually reach the basement. But all they find is a women's changing room with Jenna there. They can't recognize her in this form, and she tells them to leave because they are busy. With that, she begins performing in the bar when she notices Jiwoo, who has the same old watch as her. Just then, Peony's mom finds her in the present and snaps her out of the vision. They go inside and start drinking, where the woman reveals that 10 years ago, Jenna used to regret that she killed someone. The woman believes that this regret is from her past life, and Jenna is confused now. On the other side, Jiwoo is distressed in his house, and as he picks up the pieces of the burnt manuscript, he sees some words that take him back to the 1930s. It is the same scene from where Jenna's vision ended, and Jiwoo is refusing to drink and dance because he has to meet a deadline. He is a fanatic about writing no matter what, and hopes that one day, when Korea is finally free from Japan, he can write to his heart's content. He asks Shin about his novel, and he replies that right now, he is more interested in Jenna. On hearing this, Jiwoo is shocked and disappointed. With that, he snaps back to reality. Just then, his secretary comes there and reveals that they have found evidence about his adoptive mom tipping off the reporter. She plans to file a case against them, but Jiwoo doesn't want that. However, his manager has already called Jenna to his office so that she can help him teach the nosy reporter a lesson. Just then, Jiwoo comes there and takes her out. He doesn't want her to push the case forward, and he promises to compensate her for the problems the news caused her. Jenna asks him if he is doing this because he is guilty about something, and Jiwoo begins lashing out at her. He then returns home to work, and soon gets a call from his manager, who is not satisfied with his recent chapter. Jiwoo tells him that he will send a better version soon, but as he tries to write, the images of the burnt paper keep popping up in his mind. He tries searching for it but doesn't find it. Instead, he finds Shin again. He gives him a copy of the chapter he wrote, but only on the condition that Jiwoo completes the novel and lets him stay here. Jiwoo accepts it and begins copying the chapter. But just as he is about to send it, he recalls his conversation with Jenna about how he wants to be a unique writer. In the end, he didn't send the script. On the other side, Jenna leaves after her shift in the animal shelter, where she finds Jiwoo waiting for her. She ignores him and begins walking away, but he stops her. After a bit of bickering, Jiwoo says that he wants her help to understand the psychology of a female fan. He says that his next novel is about a big star who finds that he will die soon, so he wants to do something for a big fan. He asks Jenna what he should do, and after telling him that his next novel sounds stupid, she asks him out for lunch. They go to the restaurant where Peony works, and she is not happy to see Jenna on a lunch date with Jiwoo. She treats him nicely but acts coldly toward her friend, and Jiwoo can only laugh at that. After that, they go to a game arcade where Jiwoo takes Jenna to a shooting game. Her hands tremble as she holds the gun, and he holds her to stabilize her. In the end, she ends up winning the desired prize, and then Jiwoo thanks her before leaving. After that, he meets with Shin and tells him that he can no longer hire him as a ghostwriter. He takes him to a press conference where he reveals to the media that this person is his ghostwriter. He asks the reporters to stop bugging Jenna because she is just a fan. Everyone is shocked to see this, and the manager goes through a wide range of emotions on seeing this conference. Later, as Jiwoo sees the conference, he is shocked to see that the seat where Shin was sitting is empty. He wonders what is happening when suddenly, Shin appears behind him and asks why he is so surprised. Jiwoo grabs him by the collar and asks him who the hell he is, and he smirks while telling him that he is a ghost and a ghostwriter. He tells him that he is a ghost who has been trapped in the typewriter for 80 years. And thinking about the past, everything creepy begins to make sense now. Jiwoo freaks out and loses consciousness, and when he returns to his senses, he freaks out once again. After calming down, Shin reveals that he was also surprised because Jiwoo could see him. He asks how that is possible and if he is the only person who can see him. Shin says that there is another, and that is Peony, who is a shaman's daughter. Back in Jiwoo's home, he asks Shin to leave this world quietly, but he says that he wants to confess his feelings to Jenna before that. Jiwoo gets a shock on hearing that. Shin then says that there are many men around Jenna interested in her, so he wants to hurry and see her, but he fears that she might not be able to see him, so he is hesitating. He suddenly asks Jiwoo if he is also interested in Jenna, and he immediately denies him. Just then, Jenna comes to his house, and while Jiwoo wants to send her away, Shin opens the door. Jiwoo begins yelling at him, and when Jenna enters the house, she thinks that he is angry at her. However, he tells her that he was doing it for his new novel. Jenna tells him that she has brought some food for him, and while she talks to Jiwoo, Shin tries to distract her, but she can't see him at all. They sit down to eat, and Jenna thanks Jiwoo because after his interview, people have stopped bothering her. She begins reading him some parts of his book, and as Shin keeps on talking about how pretty she is, Jiwoo asks him to shut up. Jenna thinks he is talking to her, and she says that she should return home now. Shin pesters Jiwoo to stop her, and he lashes out at him, making things worse, and Jenna once again thinks that he was talking to her. She begins to leave, and Jiwoo follows her to stop her. However, she begins crying because his actions hurt her. After that, Jiwoo goes inside and finds that Shin is not there. He threatens to break the typewriter if he doesn't come out, but then he sees a portrait on the wall moving and faints. The next day, his secretary, staff, and manager visit him because after his bizarre interview yesterday, public opinion has shifted in their favor. However, Jiwoo shocks them by saying that he doesn't plan to continue writing anymore. He tells the manager that an actual ghost wrote the script, and the manager is worried about his mental health now. So he calls a psychiatrist, who thinks that Jiwoo is seeing ghosts out of fear of abandonment. Actually, Jiwoo's mental health took a hit 15 years ago too, when his parents died. Hwang's dad came to take him home, claiming to be his dad's friend. There, Jiwoo's adoptive mom told him to live like a ghost in this house, so that she doesn't even hear or see him. After that, Jiwoo begins driving home with Shin by his side. Shin asks him to continue writing the novel, but he doesn't want to. He claims that he has already committed a grave sin by taking credit for another person's work, but Shin tells him that he was the one who wrote everything 80 years ago. On the other hand, Jenna is at the animal shelter when Hwang comes there with his cat and says that she is sick for no reason. A quick x-ray shows that it suffers from many broken bones. To gloss things over, Hwang brings takeout for everyone and then takes Jenna to his new writing office and convinces her to be his assistant. Meanwhile, Jiwoo was on a walk, and he spots a purse that he wants to gift Jenna, so he buys it and reaches the shelter, only to see her get out of Hwang's car. He overhears that she is his assistant now, and just then, the dog from before also comes there. She's happy to see it, and Hwang volunteers to take the dog with him. However, just as he is going away, Jiwoo comes there and confronts him. They get into a small quarrel over Jenna, and Jiwoo says that he won't let anyone take her from him. He then says that the dog is also his, and he takes it away. On the way, he hears Shin's voice from the dog and suddenly realizes that it was Shin who did all the mischief disguised as the dog earlier. He begins pulling on his leash, but just then, Jenna comes there. She lashes at Jiwoo for mistreating a dog and takes it away. When Jiwoo reaches home, he finds Shin there. He tells him to leave him alone, but Shin asks him to complete the novel. He insists that he is the only one who can complete this story, and let him regain the lost memories of his life. Jiwoo doesn't care and tries to break the typewriter when suddenly, he sees another vision. In 1930, he and Shin wanted to buy a typewriter, but it was too costly. However, Shin buys and gifts the typewriter to Jiwoo, who starts writing a romance story on it. Jenna was not happy that he was writing love stories in the era of revolution, but Jiwoo had told Shin that it was the story he wanted to write for himself. Jenna is curious now, so she steals his manuscript, and Shin stops Jiwoo from chasing after her. After reading the script, Jenna goes to the stage and makes a toast to Jiwoo, calling him an emerging writer. She then declares that all drinks today are on Shin and a party starts. With that, Jiwoo returns to his senses and Shin requests that he complete the story. He wants to know how he died in his past life and why, instead of getting reincarnated, he got stuck in the typewriter. The story again shifts to the past, where Jenna and Jiwoo are quarreling because he refuses to publish the story he has written. Shin acts as the referee and tells Ji-woo to help treat Jenna's wounds instead of fighting with her. She doesn't trust him because he is not a doctor, but it turns out that Ji-woo studied medicine and decided to become a writer just before getting a license. With that, Shin leaves and Ji-woo takes Jenna to the basement. He asks her to take off her shirt to get the treatment because he really doesn't see her as a girl. After a little bit of chasing each other around, Ji-woo manages to catch Jenna and give her the treatment. He tells her that he belongs to a family of doctors, but when he decided to become a writer, they disowned him. Jenna encourages him, saying that his role as a writer is also important for the freedom of Korea, and asks him to keep trying his best and publish his book one day. With that, the story comes to the present again, and Shin asks Ji-woo to complete his novel because Jenna also wanted that. He wants the mysteries of their past solved, but Ji-woo is not interested in that. Shin is heartbroken and admits that coming here was a mistake, so he leaves his house. On the other hand, Jenna is drinking with Peony. She curses and insults Ji-woo, but when Peony does that, she defends him. Irritated by her, Peony goes to the washroom, and on the way, she finds Shin with the dog. When he tells her that he is not here for Jenna, but for her, she gets really happy. She asks him to wait till she returns from the washroom, and at that time, Shin decides to say his final goodbye to Jenna. She suddenly turns towards him, and he wonders if she can see him, but nopes. She was just about to pass out from drinking too much. The next day, the manager organizes a party for Ji-woo, but he focuses on gardening instead of coming there. The manager visits him and asks him to resume writing, but he refuses, saying that he plans to change the way he lives his life. The manager reminds him of the first day they met 8 years ago. Ji-woo was a struggling writer, especially because Hwang had published his manuscript under his name, and when Ji-woo tried to publish it, he was labeled as Hwang's copy. He was not interested in the manager back then, but when he asked him if he didn't want to prove to the world that he was not Hwang's copy, Ji-woo stopped. He saw a passion in the manager and agreed to work with him. Back to the present, Ji-woo says that he is a different person now, so he doesn't want to make the same decision. After that, he visits Jenna's store to stare at her from a distance. She is worried about the dog and wonders what he can do for it. Ultimately, she and Peony take it home, and her mom agrees to adopt it because she believes that the dog can chase away the spirits around her daughter, but it howls so much at night, so she changes her decision. The next morning, Jenna calls Hwang and asks him to adopt the dog once again. He says that he is busy and has to get coffee right now. Jenna offers to bring coffee to him, but coincidentally, Ji-woo is in the same shop too. Jenna ignores him brutally, but then he apologizes, and she feels a little happy. They sit down to talk, and he begins saying that he had reasons for shouting at her earlier, but she won't believe him. Jenna asks him to try her, and when he tells her about the ghost of Shin, she doesn't believe him. She tells him to get lost and takes the dog away, but Ji-woo comes to stop her again. He tries telling her that the dog is possessed by a spirit and asks her to let him take it. She reminds him that he is allergic to dog fur, but just then, Hwang comes there and says that it is a lie. However, he gives the dog to Ji-woo in the end. Once Ji-woo takes the dog home, he tries calling out Shin, but then he realizes that he is not possessing the dog right now. So he decides to make a doghouse, but he can't get the thoughts of Jenna and his past life out of his mind. On the other hand, Jenna is working for Hwang, but she can't focus on the manuscript because she is too worried about the dog. Hwang tells her that Ji-woo would have taken the dog by any means because he always does that. He tries to drop hints that he is interested in Jenna, but she doesn't understand them. Meanwhile, Ji-woo gets fed up with his helplessness and calls out Shin, saying that he is ready to complete the novel. Just then, the lights go out and Shin appears. Ji-woo tells him that he is not interested in the past or the story. He just wants his life to return to normal. Shin is okay with that, but he has some conditions. On the other side, Jenna leaves Hwang's office, but it starts raining. He offers to drop her off, but she has an umbrella. Just then, a bike almost runs into her, but Hwang saves her and grabs her hand tightly. Before Jenna can free herself, Ji-woo comes there and takes her hand away from Hwang. It turns out that the condition Shin put forward was to remove all the boys interested in Jenna from her life, and while Ji-woo was initially reluctant, now he is completely on page. He has a verbal scuffle with Hwang, and then he takes Jenna home, while Shin laughs and claps at the scene. Jenna stops him midway and asks why he is doing this. Shin tells Ji-woo not to mention him, so he says that she reminds him of his first love, so he can't see her with another person. Shin facepalms because Ji-woo just made the worst mistake he could in front of a girl. Jenna is heartbroken that Ji-woo was never interested in her, but he took her as a replacement for another girl, so she angrily leaves. In Ji-woo's home, Shin asks Ji-woo if he has never been in a relationship before, and he can only ask him how he knows that. He replies that it is because he was talking about another girl in front of Jenna, and Jiwoo says that he was just talking about her past life. Shin is disappointed yet again and asks Jiwoo if he has a single-digit EQ. Jiwoo is angry at him now and tells him to get out of his home. The next day, Shin follows Jiwoo everywhere with a soft toy, not willing to stop until he gets on good terms with Jenna again. Jiwoo asks the ghost to give up his obsession with Jenna because she can't even see him. He replies that he hired him to keep her safe from other guys just for that reason. Jiwoo asks what would happen if Jenna fell for him while he protected her, and Shin laughs because that seems unlikely as things stand. Eventually, they agree to work together and form a contract to clearly define the terms of their cooperation, but it does not go smoothly as well. Meanwhile, Jiwoo's manager was organizing a camping trip, but since Jiwoo is not coming, he has planned to postpone it because without him, it won't be successful. He doesn't think that Hwang is good enough to make the plan successful, and Hwang hears everything from outside. Just then, he gets a call from Jenna, who is sick because of drenching in rain yesterday, to tell him that his cat is ready to be discharged from the shelter. On the other hand, Jiwoo and Shin go to buy a purse for Jenna, because the previous one was broken because of their mistake. Jiwoo gifts it to her, and she leaves after simply thanking him. He stops her as he tries to tell her that it is a branded and expensive purse, but she doesn't care. Suddenly, she begins coughing, and Jiwoo checks her temperature. This reminds Jenna of the vision where he was caring for her in the past, and she just slaps his hand aside and leaves. Jiwoo wants to get close to her anyhow, so Shin gives him an idea. He goes to the animal shelter with the dog that Shin is possessing. Jenna and other staff begin playing with the dog, and Jiwoo is jealous of Shin for this. Just then, Hwang comes there for his cat, and Jiwoo immediately leaves. However, Shin tells him to stay here and watch. They see Jenna and Hwang talking, and both get jealous of him. Once they return home, they print out some pictures of handsome men, wondering which of them is closer to Jenna's type. Shin tells Jiwoo to ask her directly, and while he says that he won't, he is outside her house at night asking which type of men she likes. She is disappointed that he disturbed her for this reason, but then Jiwoo asks her if she likes Hwang. She replies that she likes him, but only as a writer, and Jiwoo is relieved. They take a walk after that, and Jenna asks him about the girl she reminds him of. He begins describing her past self, but she is also the female lead of the novel Chicago Typewriter. She asks him more about the character arc of the novel's lead, but he says that he doesn't know yet. They go to drink after that, and Jenna says that she feels that there is another person with them here. Jiwoo then asks her why she quit shooting, and she says that every time she held a gun, she saw herself killing a man she should not have, and that regret forced her to quit. She collapses with that, and Jiwoo takes her home before returning to his mansion. There, they wonder if Jenna killed one of them in her past life, and decide to complete the novel to know the answer. Jiwoo then asks more about how they met in the past, and Shin tells him that Jenna's dad was a freedom fighter. But one day, Japanese troops arrested him. The young Jenna ran away somehow, and the troops chased after her. But then, a mysterious masked man killed them all and helped her escape without telling her his name. Jenna then met Shin, who brought her to his bar, where he told her to pretend to be a boy and work here. Just then, Jiwoo came there, and he could tell that Jenna was a girl. He began teasing her, and they started fighting, which was how their relationship remained until late. Back to the present, Jiwoo asks Shin for more stories, but he says that he will tell him only one story per day. On the other hand, Hwang's mom calls the reporter and asks him to publish the news that Jiwoo is quitting writing so that the sponsors stop funding him. Hwang's dad is also worried about Jiwoo not writing anything, so he goes to see him. Actually, the other day he could not see Shin under the table, but saw the manuscript for the novel Hwang copied from Jiwoo. In the past, Jiwoo had told him that Hwang copied his story to win a story writing contest, but the man did not believe him. He told Jiwoo that he was just jealous of Hwang and asked if he had any proof. That broke Jiwoo's heart, and he left his house forever. Now the old man apologizes and says that he wanted to trust Hwang at that time, but Jiwoo doesn't mind. He says that he is just keeping the manuscript with him so that he's reminded about not trusting anyone from now on. On the other hand, Jenna is returning home from work, and she thinks that after she told Jiwoo about her weird secrets last night, he will never come to see her again because even her mother abandoned her because of that. However, Jiwoo was waiting for her outside her house. She is moved to tears upon seeing him, and Jiwoo simply hugs her with Shin in the background. Shin recalls another story from the past, where Jenna was trying to cover Shin's face to see if he looked like the man who had saved her that day. She concluded that he was not the same. Just then, they found that the singer of their bar had left the job. so the owner decided to use Jenna as a replacement. She manages to convince her that no one will be able to recognize her when she dresses like a girl, and she emotionally blackmails her to help them. Soon, Jenna dressed up as a girl, and Shin could not take his eyes off her. Back to the present, Ji-woo and Jenna are sitting alone in a park, where she tells him about her childhood. She used to tell her mom, "Mama, I just killed a man." And fed up with that, she brought her to Peony's mom, who found out that Jenna has memories of her past life. Soon after that, her mom left her there, and Jenna believes that she abandoned her because of her past. Ji-woo asks her if the past memories still bother her, but she lies that they don't, fearing that he will also leave her. After that, Ji-woo walks her home and she coughs again, so he checks her temperature again. The memories of the past life return clearly to Jenna, and as she heads inside, Ji-woo tells her that he will never abandon her. The next day, Ji-woo finds Shin engrossed in television programs and staring at his food, so he asks his secretary to order food for one more person and give it to Shin. Soon after that, the manager comes there, visibly distraught because the investors have called an urgent meeting. Ji-woo says that there is no need for that because he is canceling the project, even though they will have to pay penalties for that. Shin also tries to convince him to complete the novel, but he doesn't want to because it may bring Jenna's horrible memories back. On the other hand, the manager is trying to convince all the investors that the project is ongoing, but then Hwang's mom comes there to worsen things for him. But surprisingly, Ji-woo enters and tells everyone that there is no problem at all. He shows them that the latest chapter of Chicago Typewriter has been published, and it is popular as well. It turns out that to quell his doubts, Ji-woo showed the early draft of the latest chapter to Jenna in advance. But since no past memories came to her, he decided it was safe to continue. The investors are happy about it, and they tell Hwang's mom that she wasted their time. On the other hand, Hwang's dad visits his office, where he sees the book whose story he stole from Shin. Hwang proudly says that his book is still selling well, but his dad tells him that they should stop pretending that it is his book. He reveals that he knows the truth and asks Hwang to stop taking credit for someone else's work and start fresh. He promises that he and Ji-woo will not tell anyone the truth, but he should reconsider his actions. As the old man leaves the office, Jenna comes there. Hwang starts acting as a victim in front of her and says that his dad always favored Ji-woo over him. They start drinking, and Hwang passes out. Meanwhile, Shin sees in the news that an old Japanese government building is being demolished, and he wants to go see it in person to feel victorious. Ji-woo initially doesn't want to go, but seeing Shin so sad, he agrees, and they decide to take Jenna with her too. Jenna is in her office talking to Hwang, but then Ji-woo arrives there and takes her phone from her. He tells Hwang to never contact Jenna after this, and then takes her to the location of the building. Shin feels pride and joy that their struggles bore fruit, and Ji-woo thanks him because he sacrificed his life to free their country. Shin then asks Ji-woo to click his pictures with Jenna, and he does so. They three click a group picture as well, but at home, Shin finds that he hasn't appeared in any pictures. However, he is glad that Jenna is happy. Ji-woo then asks him about how Jenna learned to shoot, and he says that one day she interrupted his meeting with other freedom fighters. Everyone pointed their guns at her, but Jenna said that she was here to help and wanted to learn shooting as well. Shin couldn't give her a clear answer, so he decided to ask the head of their organization, who turned out to be none other than Ji-woo. He liked the idea of having a female sharpshooter and permitted Shin to train her. In the present, Ji-woo realizes that he is the reason behind Jenna's trauma, and maybe he was the one who told her to shoot someone. He begins recalling more things about his past, like how he used to print stories in the newspaper, but they were just coded messages for the freedom fighters. One night, he was waiting for Jenna to complete a mission and return to him, and that was the vision he saw earlier as well. After completing the mission, Jenna dragged him to a corner where she put her hand on his mouth, and that made her realize that he was the one who saved her. Just then, Japanese police come there, and she kisses him. But the police leave, and Ji-woo does not let her go so easily. After he stops kissing her, Jenna tells him not to consider this kiss anything more than a tactic of a revolutionary. However, she keeps on thinking about the kiss after that, but remembers the words of the bar owner that a freedom fighter cannot fall in love because that will only be their weakness. On the other hand, Ji-woo told Shin to tell Jenna that he was the one who saved her. He wanted to keep his identity as the leader of the freedom fighters a secret because, in case Jenna gets caught and interrogated, he doesn't want her to reveal anything, even by mistake. Just then, Jenna comes there saying that they should go to a picnic tomorrow as they are all free. However, Ji-woo says that he has a date tomorrow, so he will not come. Jenna follows him to the basement and tries to convince him, but he says that he will prefer to date a pretty woman rather than go to a picnic with a tomboy like her. He finds that she is wearing perfume and tells her not to do it because she should not pretend to be a girl. Jenna is hurt by his words, so she cries in a corner, but then Shin comes there wearing a mask. He gives her the old matchbox, and Jenna suddenly believes that he was the one who saved her. They happily leave on a bicycle with that, and Jiwoo can only watch them go. He writes this in the next part of the story, and then asks Shin if both of them loved Jenna. But whom did she love? Shin says that only Jenna knows, and she never told anyone because everyone kept their feelings private at the time for a greater cause. Jiwoo doesn't want to do that now, so he calls Jenna early in the morning, asking her for an exercise date. He has bought bicycles for them because he wants to ride with her, which he couldn't do in the past. They have fun, and then he takes her to a shooting range. Jenna brings up her trauma, but he tells her that in her past life, she was a freedom fighter, so whoever she killed was not a good person. His words work, and she calmly shoots the target. She thanks Jiwoo for consoling her, even though she believes that he just told her a fake story. On the other hand, Jenna's mom also learns about the story called Chicago Typewriter, and then suddenly rings some bells for her. Meanwhile, Jenna also reads the next chapter, and she suddenly gets some of her past memories back. Later, Jiwoo visits her with some gifts. She's about to tell him more about her past life, but then she remembers the kissing scene and blushes, and seeing her red face, Jiwoo realizes what is up. So he teases her a bit about it before inviting her out to dinner, but Jenna's mom sees them. On the other hand, Hwang's father goes to the manager and tells him to stop printing more copies of Hwang's first book because he is too dependent on it and cannot get motivated for more work. The manager agrees, and then also informs him that his wife has been messing up with him and Jiwoo lately. So the old man goes home to confront his wife, and in the process, he ends up revealing that Hwang copied a story written by Jiwoo to get famous. Meanwhile, Hwang is giving a lecture at a college as a guest, and one student stares weirdly at him. She goes to get his autograph on the same book later, and reveals that she knows that he was not the one who wrote it. On the other side, Jiwoo is driving alone to go to dinner with Jenna, but Shin comes there since he cannot be left alone. In the restaurant, Jenna tells him that she has been having visions of her past life after reading Chicago Typewriter, but she wants to know if it is a result of reading the book or the truth. Jiwoo also tells her that ever since he found his typewriter, he has been seeing memories of his past life. Jenna believes him and says that there was another person with them in her memories, and he was the first person she saw clearly. Shin is moved that she remembers him, but then he learns that Peony is going to come here, so he runs before she can see him here. On the other hand, the chef who has a crush on Jenna also comes out and sends Jenna away as an excuse to confront Jiwoo. However, Jiwoo proves that he is closer to her and takes her away. Meanwhile, Jenna's mom visits Peony's mom so that she can meet her daughter. Peony's mom berates her for coming back so abruptly after abandoning her daughter, but Jenna arrives there just then. Jenna's mom apologizes to her, but she doesn't want her apology to lash out at her for leaving her. Her mom then reveals that she also used to see memories of her past life, where they were mother and daughter too. She says that she left her so that Jenna doesn't remember things she badly wanted to forget, and then warns her to stay away from Jiwoo, or the bad ending will repeat itself. On the other hand, the drunk Hwang comes to Jiwoo's house and demands the original draft of the novel he copied from him. Jiwoo agrees to give it to him, but then Hwang passes out. Jiwoo puts him in his room, and then Shin asks him not to trust Hwang because he betrayed them in the past too. He believes that Hwang was one of the two people responsible for his death in the past, and another one was a girl named Sophia. Back at Jenna's home, her mom leaves, but she stops her, saying that she doesn't believe anything she said and that she will not stop being with Jiwoo just because of her warning. She calls Jiwoo the next day and says that she wants to meet him. While he is on his way, Jenna finally realizes that the person she shot in the previous life was none other than Jiwoo, and as she sees him, she breaks down crying. In the meantime, Hwang wakes up and begins snooping through the house to find the original manuscript, but Shin is watching over him. He calls his last life's name and Hwang can suddenly see him. He asks who he is and how he is here. Shin uses his power to snatch the manuscript from his hands, and when Hwang tries to run away, he locks the door, causing him to freak out and faint. Meanwhile, Jiwoo tries consoling Jenna and asks what happened. She lies and says that she just wanted him to comfort and hug her. He hugs her and then takes her to the cafe, where Jenna asks him about the end of the story because she is curious. He says that he doesn't know, so he will take the help of a third party to complete it. Later, he drops Jenna off at home, and she leaves without even wishing him goodbye. Once inside, she is overcome with nausea and begins vomiting. On the other hand, Shin wonders how Huang could suddenly see him. Just then, Huang wakes up, and Shin vanishes. Jiwoo also comes back soon and hands him the manuscript for the novel, because he was not going to reveal the truth to the world anyway. He takes the manuscript and scampers, but then Shin comes out and tells Jiwoo that he should not have forgiven the traitor so easily. Jiwoo asks him how exactly Huang betrayed them in the past, and he reveals that he was a secret agent of the Japanese government who was tailing Jenna, and he suspected that the bar she worked at was related to the revolutionaries. Jiwoo thinks that maybe he was the one who killed Shin, but he is not sure about that. However, he knows that Huang is dangerous and should not be left unchecked. Later, Huang bumps into a man on his way back home, and Shin steals the manuscript by magic. Huang finds the manuscript missing and thinks that Jiwoo sent the man to steal it, and then he gets a call from the girl who knows his secret. On the other hand, Jenna cannot fall asleep, so she wakes up Peony's mom and asks her to read Jiwoo's face from a picture. She already knew about him from their first meeting. She knew that Jiwoo's life was always at risk, and he should be especially careful when choosing a woman. Jenna wonders if she is dangerous for Jiwoo's life, but the woman doesn't tell her anything. On the other hand, Shin is wondering how Huang could see him, while Jiwoo is wondering why Jenna is so interested in the story's end. He decides to call her, and Jenna says that she is coming to spend the entire day with him. They have some fun together, but then Jenna starts talking about cryptic things because she has decided to distance herself from Jiwoo for good so that she doesn't end up hurting him. After that, she returns to the shelter where Huang calls her, but Jenna sends her vet friend to tell him that she can't be her assistant anymore. She then goes home and starts packing her stuff to go far away, and she doesn't even tell Peony where she's going. Just then, Huang calls her outside and begins lashing out at her. He asks her how dare she ignore him earlier because his ego was hurt earlier. He grabs her hand, but just then Jiwoo comes there and frees Jenna. He asks Huang what he is doing here, and he replies that Jenna violated her contract with him. Jiwoo simply asks him to send any penalty bill to him because Jenna is his assistant now. He takes her away in his car because he went to the animal shelter and found that she had left the job. She finally reveals that she killed him in her last life, and that is why she doesn't want it to happen again. Jiwoo assures her that it will not happen, but as they get out of the car, someone hits Jiwoo with her bike. It is the same girl who is blackmailing Huang, but he has sent a spy after her, who gives him this clip. On the other hand, Shin goes to visit Jenna, thinking that if he calls her last name, maybe she will see him. However, he runs into Peony there and they start talking. Her mom comes there and calls them inside. She can't see or hear Shin because her shaman powers are fading, but she can sense him. She starts talking to Shin in private and tells him that when a ghost gets too close to humans, he becomes obsessed with life, and that can turn him into an evil spirit. Shin feels the truth in her words and begins leaving. He meets Peony outside again and tells her that he won't come to see her or Jenna again. She starts crying over that and confesses that she always liked him. On the other hand, Jiwoo is admitted to the hospital after the injury, and Jenna looks after him. His secretary meets with the manager and informs him that the girl who hit him did so intentionally. Meanwhile, Jenna once again blames herself for putting Jiwoo in danger, but he gets up and says that it is not true because she saved his life from the stalker in the past. He says that he loved her in his previous life too, but this time he won't let them end tragically. He suddenly kisses her, but Shin sees this, and his heart breaks. The next morning when Jiwoo wakes, he accidentally mistakes his secretary for Jenna, and she understands that he has just gotten into a relationship with her. Jenna's friends also realize this, and when she tries denying it, they take Jiwoo's name, and she eagerly turns back to see him, but he is not there. The secretary does the same with Jiwoo, and he falls for this trick too. Just then, the girl who hit Jiwoo comes there to audition for a job, and on Jenna's recommendation, the simp chef hires her. The girl named Do-hee thanks her for that. But Jenna doesn't know that she hit Jiwoo earlier, and she has other ulterior motives as well. After that, Huang calls Do-hee to his office, and she commends his guts. However, when he shows her the video of her hitting Jiwoo, she is taken aback and enters an alliance with him. The next day, police catch a man suspected of being the person who hit Jiwoo, and he pleads guilty too. He begs for forgiveness, and Jiwoo lets him go, but the man was just working for money to protect Do-hee. Later, Do-hee finds Jenna coming out of a restaurant with food for Jiwoo. She stops to talk to her when Jiwoo comes there. Do-hee quickly goes inside and Jiwoo remarks that he has seen her before. Jenna is jealous, but then Jiwoo takes her home to introduce her to Shin. She introduces herself to him, even though she can see him, and Shin is still dealing with too many emotions. Jiwoo asks her to toss a coin to see if Shin is here or not. She does so, and Shin uses his power to slow the coin to show his presence. After that, they enter his writing room to complete the story. Jenna asks why Shin was not reincarnated like them, and Jiwoo says that they are hoping to find that too by completing the novel. But first, he decides to create a contract between him and Jenna, and he keeps it short on purpose. They celebrate after that, and Jiwoo doesn't say many things that Shin wants to tell Jenna because they would present him in a bad light. Just then, Jiwoo gets a text that he has to go to the funeral of a veteran writer, and he is nervous about leaving Jenna and Shin alone. Once he is gone, Jenna and Shin work on a code where he can tell her yes or no by tapping his glass on the table. They begin talking, and Jenna says that she remembers his handsome face from his past life. She decides to go home since it is getting late, but Shin can't bear it any longer, and he calls her name from her past life to make himself visible to her. On the other hand, Hwang learns that Do-hee's target was not Jiwoo but Jenna, and he is worried about her now. So he goes to see Jenna, who is helping Hwang's dad home because he drank too much at the funeral. Hwang warns him to stay away from Jenna, or she will be in danger. Meanwhile, Jenna is really amazed to see a real ghost. She then shows him the antique watch and says that she killed its owner. Shin knows that the watch belonged to Jiwoo, but he is certain that Jenna couldn't kill him. He tells her about the past, when one day Jiwoo told her to live like a girl from now on. The three of them went outside for a picnic, but Hwang was also there, keeping an eye on him. He asked Jenna out on a date, but she refuses, so he gives her an expensive gift. She refuses that too, so he gives her some candies in a newspaper packet. Jenna accepts that, but as she sees Jiwoo's story in the newspaper, she reads the code message about her mission earlier. She suddenly realizes that Jiwoo is the mastermind behind everything, so she goes to confront him and points her gun at him. She asks him why he lied to her this entire time, but he just holds the gun and tells her to shoot. She can't. And Jiwoo tells her that she is too soft to be a sharpshooter. She asks if he kept it a secret from her because he couldn't trust her, and Jiwoo replies that he couldn't trust himself to be the same after she knew her truth. Back in the present, Jiwoo returns home, and Jenna is glad to see him. She tells him that she didn't kill him after all, and then he notices that she can see Shin now. Jiwoo is astonished and pulls Shin to the corner to ask how this happened. He distracts him and says that they should focus on completing the novel first. They sit to write, but no one has any idea. So Shin says that he can use the power of the old matchbox to take them to 1930. Jenna and Jiwoo are sent to the past, but just as they reach there, they find themselves in the midst of an armed conflict. On the other hand, Shin touches the old watch and suddenly sees blood on it, which reminds him that when he died, this watch was there near the typewriter. In 1930, Jenna and Jiwoo learn that they are like ghosts to everyone here. They see Jenna shooting the Japanese soldiers, and then she gets up to escape. Hwang comes there and helps her escape, not realizing that she was the sniper. They separate, so Jenna and Jiwoo decide to follow one each. Jiwoo follows Hwang and finds him promising to his boss that his trap will work and he will catch the leader of the rebels. And after that, he goes somewhere with Shin. Meanwhile, Jenna follows her past self and finds herself meeting the owner of the bar, who is actually her mother in this life. Jiwoo also comes there, and they go inside to see the revolutionaries, thinking that there is a spy among them. Just then, Shin calls them both back, and now everyone is in doubt. Jenna suspects that her mom was the spy because she was acting guilty earlier, and Jiwoo thinks that Shin is the spy, and Shin wonders if Jenna was the one who shot him in the end because the watch points towards that. They decide to keep their secrets, and they go home. However, as Shin keeps looking at the watch, he feels a crack in his hand. The next day, he visits Peony's mom and talks to her by typing on her laptop. She tells him that the crack means that his time in this world is limited, and the closer he is to humans, and the more he uses his powers, the faster he will vanish. He is shell-shocked and leaves the house, where he runs into Peony. She excitedly starts talking to him, but then her mother comes out, and she reveals that Shin is a ghost, and she starts crying. Shin then goes to Jiwoo's home, where he tells him that he saw him meet Hwang in the past. Shin says that he was meeting him as the owner of the bar because he invited him to a party to expand his contacts. However, this was actually the trap set out by Hwang, who wanted to lure him into the party to arrest him. However, Shin knew that he was a secret agent, so he told Jiwoo about the invitation, who decided to go to the party to distract the Japanese and use this chance to launch a counterattack. Jiwoo is glad to hear that Shin didn't betray him, and then he asks what will happen to him once the novel is completed. He says that he doesn't mind him staying with him now, and Shin is moved. On the other side, Hwang meets with Do-hee, who tells him that she is the sister of the stalker who went after Jiwoo, and she is here to complete his task. She has researched Hwang enough to know that he won't rat her out because he too hates Jiwoo. On the other hand, Jiwoo's secretary finds the video of his accident earlier, and he realizes that the biker was trying to hit Jenna and not him. Right now, Do-hee is again targeting Jenna, but Jiwoo comes there at the last moment and sends her away by using his car as a block. He takes Jenna home and says that since her life is in danger, she will stay here till things are better. She starts blushing thinking about that, but then both Jiwoo and Shin keep disturbing her by repeatedly coming to her room. Eventually, they have a late-night snack together and begin talking about how happy they are. Shin says that this is the happiest moment of his life because all three of them are together. The story then goes to the past again, where Shin was giving a speech to the revolutionaries on their leader's behalf right before their big mission. Everyone is motivated by his pep talk, and they share their dreams about what they will do in independent Korea. However, Jiwoo gets quite sad and enters his writing room, where he tells Shin that he always feels guilty about putting everyone in danger, especially him. He then goes outside to get some fresh air and finds Jenna there. She tells him that she knows he has feelings for her, but he can't let them win over his desire to earn the country's freedom. She asks him to promise that if they are reborn in the future, he will see her as a woman and not hide his feelings anymore. However, he tells her that she should come back alive after the mission at all costs. Back in the present, Jenna wakes up in the morning and finds that both Shin and Jiwoo are trying hard to impress her with their cooking. They have some fun cooking, eating, and bathing the dog. Later, Shin thinks that he doesn't have much time, so he should do some important things. He sends the manuscript of the copied novel to the reporters. After that, they sit down to discuss the past, and Jenna says that she doubts that her mom was the spy, and she is correct. She recalls how her mom, who was the bar owner in the past, was trying to convince her to join the party of Japanese officers as the singer. This would be in conflict with their mission and also put her in danger, but they could not refuse since it was a high-level party, and skipping it would lead the Japanese police to doubt them. However, Jiwoo changed the plan to make things possible. Jenna doesn't remember anything after that. Just then, the secretary comes there and reveals the storm that Shin has kicked up by revealing that Hwang stole a story from Jiwoo. Hwang's mom is getting bombarded by reporters' calls, and the manager breaks his contract with him as well. So in the end, Hwang asks Do-hee to help him take revenge on Jiwoo, and she agrees. On the other hand, Jiwoo is angry at Shin for doing this without his permission. He lashes out at him, but then Jenna manages to butter both of them and bring them back to a good mood again. The next day, she gets a call from Do-hee, who calls her to her house, claiming that her cat is ill. Jenna goes there, but falls into Do-hee's trap as she spikes her drink, which causes her to lose consciousness. She calls Hwang to tell him this, and he asks her to keep watching over her. He then calls Jiwoo and sends him the video proof that Do-hee was the one who attacked him. He also says that she has kidnapped Jenna and sent him a location because she still thinks he is close to her. Jiwoo gets the location from him and visits it, only to find Hwang there. He understands everything now, and Hwang tells him to call the media and tell them that the news about the copied book is fake, and then he will tell Do-hee to leave Jenna. Meanwhile, Shin finds Hwang's mail and Do-hee's video, and the rest of his memories come back to him suddenly. He also realizes that Jiwoo is in danger, so he decides to teleport near him. But in doing so, he loses most of his power and almost fades away. Jiwoo warns him that now he has betrayed Do-hee too, so she will come after his life even if he obliges. Realizing the blunder he made, Hwang is about to commit suicide but stops him, only to fall down himself. As he is falling, he recalls the mission at the Japanese party, where the revolutionaries are dressed as waiters. Jenna is also there as the singer, and on her secret cue, an explosion occurs nearby, throwing the Japanese into panic. This was all part of Jiwoo's plan, and then Hwang and other officers began looking out for the attacker. However, on the way, Hwang recalls that Shin was looking at his watch again and again, and realizes he must be behind it. Back at the party, the lights go out as Jenna's performance ends, and then suddenly, the revolutionaries come there, armed for battle. A fight takes place between the two sides, and Jiwoo and others are able to escape at the end after completing their mission. However, Jenna, who was going to do her job as the sniper, is arrested by Hwang, and they even find her gun with her. He begins interrogating her, but she claims that she knows nothing. However, Hwang believes that both Jiwoo and Shin like her, so they will come to rescue her. He also calls in the bar owner there, who admits that Jenna is the spy. On the other hand, Jiwoo and Shin are torn between their duties as revolutionaries and saving Jenna. Shin believes that they should save her, but Jiwoo says that they cannot make any exception. He claims that Jenna knew what she was getting into as she became a freedom fighter, and she must see her path to the end. Everyone is dispersed, and then Jiwoo comes out and starts staring at Jenna's picture. He remembers the happy moments they shared and bursts into tears. He then recalls their kiss and how he asked her to return alive at all costs. Shin finds him crying and then tells him that they should go their separate ways from now on. He is determined to save Jenna at all costs and meets with Hwang the next day. He offers the identity of the leader of the freedom fighters in exchange for Jenna's freedom. Later, Jiwoo receives the news that Shin has been arrested, as he is the leader of the freedom fighters. Hwang takes Shin to the interrogation room and brings Jenna in front of him. She has already been brutally tortured, and he asks her if Shin is their leader. She refuses to say anything, so Hwang hits her, and Shin tries to get close to her, but the policemen hold him back. Shin is furious at Hwang for breaking his promise, but he reminds him that he did that first by pretending to be the leader. He says that he is too stupid to be the leader, and tells him that unless he reveals the true leader's name, Jenna will keep on suffering. She is brought to his cell and beaten again and again, and then finally, Hwang puts a gun to her head. Shin finally breaks and reveals that Jiwoo is the leader, and Jenna is devastated. Hwang leads his troops and manages to capture the freedom fighters, but Jiwoo fights back. However, he runs out of ammo and is forced to escape, but the Japanese corner him on a cliff. With that, his flask ends. He falls from the building, but Shin saves him by possessing him and slowing his fall. Then he suddenly starts to fade, but says that it is because possessing humans requires too much power. He then tells him to save Jenna, while he stops Hwang here. Hwang has seen Shin come out of Jiwoo's body, so he knows that he is a ghost and tries to run him over with his car. Meanwhile, Jiwoo informs his secretary that Do-hee has kidnapped Jenna, and she calls the police. The police manage to save Jenna while Do-hee is out grocery shopping, and she runs away as she sees police cars outside her house. Jenna and Jiwoo are reunited, and he is really happy to see her, and because of that sudden relief, he passes out. He suddenly remembers the rest of his flask. He was cornered on the cliff, and Hwang told his men that he wanted him alive. However, Jiwoo didn't want that at any cost, so he shot himself in the head. At the same time, Jenna saw Jiwoo in her cell, and he apologized to her for not being true to his feelings. He confessed his feelings and said that he would love her properly in the next life. Jenna started crying, unaware that this was not the real Jiwoo but his ghost, because he had already died. Soon after that, Shin is freed from prison because of his family's influence and his role in the leader's death, but he is traumatized by that. One day, his servant brings him a parcel that contains the typewriter, Jiwoo's watch, and a letter. With trembling hands, Shin opens the letter, which is from Jiwoo. He says that he was planning to leave the country and give his most precious belongings to his best friend. Along with these two items, he left him the manuscript of his novel and asked him to finish it with the typewriter. He asked him to write their story and to keep on protecting Jenna in the future. He also wrote that he does not regret the way he lived his life, and if he gets a second chance, he would like to live it with him and Jenna. Shin breaks into tears with this. Back to the present, Hwang runs over Shin, but he is haunted by the guilt of killing a man, even though Shin was a ghost. He is paranoid and searches for his passport to leave the country, but Shin comes to his house too. He says that he not only tried to push Jiwoo off the building but ran over him with his car, and that makes him twice as guilty. Shin grabs his collar, but then suddenly, both of them see a memory of the past where he did the same. Shin is shocked and Hwang uses this chance to run away, but then the police come there and arrest him. However, Shin is also very weak now. Back at Jiwoo's home, both he and Jenna get the drip to help them recover, and they wonder where Shin is. He comes there just then, saying that he just returned from a business he had to finish. Later, Jiwoo tells them about the flashback he had while falling, and both Shin and Jenna are curious to hear it. Later, Jenna visits Jiwoo's room because she still can't remember whom she shot, but he distracts her from that by flirting with her. On the other hand, Shin is trying to keep the cracks on his body from spreading as he recalls the shared memory with Hwang, and he wonders who it was who killed him. Meanwhile, Hwang's mom and dad visit him in the prison, and his mom keeps on saying that she will get him out of here, but he snaps at her because she is irritating him. He asks how much she intends to push him, and she can't come up with a reply. Hwang's dad sends her outside, and then Hwang tells him that he hits a ghost and asks him to let him talk to Jiwoo, who might know his identity. Meanwhile, Jiwoo's manager enters his house, but is left stunned when he sees him and Jenna sleeping together. Because of his antics, they eventually wake up, and then they are both shocked because they didn't realize that they fell asleep together. The manager disturbs them, but then Jenna gets a message from Peony, who saw her mom working in a grocery store. She goes to meet her and says that she knows about the past. She asks to reveal what she knows and free herself from the guilt of her past. Back in Jiwoo's home, he meets Shin, who wants to know who killed him. He asks Jiwoo if he is hiding something about him, and he ultimately reveals that he was the one who revealed his name to Hwang in the end. Shin is shocked by this and asks who killed him then, and just then, Jenna enters and says that she did. She remembered after talking to her mom that she was soon freed from prison because Shin tried very hard. She came to the bar where she found a newspaper talking about Jiwoo's death. She was really angry, so she went inside and unearthed a gun hidden there. On the other hand, Shin began to complete Jiwoo's novel as per his request. Soon after that, the bar was taken over by the Japanese authorities, but as they were all celebrating their victory, Jenna arrived there and opened fire on them. She killed everyone, but Hwang managed to dodge everything and picked up a gun to fight back. But Jenna was already behind him, and she pointed her gun at his head. He told her that if she stops right now, she can still live, but she told him that she would rather die than do that. Hwang laughed, saying that Jiwoo said the same thing as he died, and then Jenna suddenly shot him. Shin received news of this shootout, so he went to the bar and found the gun missing, and he knew that Jenna was the one who attacked here. After that, Jenna killed the traitor too, and then finally she reached Shin's home and pointed the gun at his head. She asked him why he betrayed Jiwoo, and he said that it was because he couldn't see her die. Jenna hesitated to shoot, but then Shin reminded her that their code said that all betrayers must be killed. He held her hand and pointed the gun at his head, telling her to maintain her posture and shoot him. With tears in her eyes, Jenna shot him, and as Shin's blood flowed down the typewriter, he wished that there was a second life where he could make his friends happy. Jenna was devastated by that, and she went to a remote location to grieve in peace. Jiwoo's spirit came to her, and she cried that she killed Shin with her own hands. She wanted to die and join them too, but Jiwoo told her to keep living and free their country. Jenna told him that she was too tired to do that, fell asleep, and then passed away in her sleep. Time passed, and years later the watch she dropped was found by Jenna's dad. That is how Jenna's flashback ends, and Shin is devastated as he says that he betrayed Jiwoo and made Jenna kill him. This news shocks him so much that his condition worsens, and he glows for a while before collapsing. Jenna calls Peony's mom, hoping that she knows how to treat a sick ghost. After hearing everything, she says that Shin doesn't have long to live, so they should try to fulfill his lingering desires before he vanishes. Jiwoo immediately leaves to finish the story, and Shin also comes there soon. He is not upset that he is going to vanish anytime now, and he says that he finally understands that he sealed himself in the typewriter to do right by his friends. They talk and laugh about the past, and then Jiwoo says that his past self knew that he was the one who revealed his identity, but he never blamed him for that and forgave him. Shin then asks him to let him use the typewriter and finish the story as he promised his friend. After that, he meets with Jenna and tells her that what she did was not her fault, so she should not feel guilty and move on from the past. She tells him to do the same, and says that in her past life, he was the one who made her life a better place. She thanks him for that, and he gently pats her head. After that, he begins to complete the novel. The next morning, Jiwoo gets a call from his adoptive dad, who asks him to do him a favor and meet Hwang. Jiwoo goes to the prison to meet him, where the mentally unstable Hwang asks him about the ghost with him. He says that the ghost is trying to make him admit that he did something wrong, and Jiwoo suddenly asks him if it is so hard to admit his mistakes. He asks him to admit his wrongdoings, atone for them, and then start a new life. Jiwoo returns home with that, and Shin wants to have a drink with him because he just finished writing. He says that it took him 83 years to fulfill his promise, but Jiwoo tells him that his work is not done yet. He shows him the contract and says that he still has to live with him until their novel is complete. By this, he doesn't mean the novel of their past lives, but this life. Soon after that, Jiwoo writes the story, and then he tells Shin that he doesn't want him to vanish, so he plans to seal him in his novel this time. He believes that with time, Shin will recover his spiritual energy, and then he can meet him again. Just then, Shin starts glowing because he is on the brink of vanishing, but before that, he takes him out fishing along with Jenna. There, Jiwoo thanks him for coming into his life, taking him out of the writer's block, and bringing Jenna into his life. Jenna gets flustered on hearing that and leaves, and then Jiwoo tells Shin not to disappear on him. However, just as he turns around, he finds that Shin is no longer there. Jiwoo can't believe it and tells Shin to stop messing with him and come out. Jenna also returns just then, and she hugs Jiwoo as she sees him losing his temper. Both of them are emotional and start crying, but then they notice a fishing floater jumping up and down and realize Shin pulled a last flight one on them. Soon after that, Jiwoo publishes his book about Shin and tells the entire world about their story. That's the end of this story. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Publishes his book about Shin and tells the entire world about their story. That's the end of this story. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.